David's Saturday AI Thoughts, episode 27, 22nd August 2026, 1 inch. What's on my mind? I was in a pose I was fairly sure I was nailing. A bit hot, but quietly pleased with myself. Then the instructor came over and suggested I move my left hip about an inch. An inch. Ouch! A whole new zone opened up. Muscles I had not worked enough. The good kind of shaking. I had been happily doing the pose and also, without knowing it, in the way that let me avoid the hard part and the real benefits. I'm back at hot yoga after a long time away. I stopped when the studios closed in the pandemic, and I have been giving that as the excuse ever since. Yeah, quite a thing to still be saying in 2026. Going back has produced two kinds of surprise. That was the first. The second was hearing something I have been told so many times I had stopped hearing it, and realizing I had been doing one thing wrong for 8 years. It is the same sequence every class, whether it is your first time or your 10,000th. There is no advanced room to graduate into. The teachers still take classes. The most experienced person on the floor is still being adjusted. Now the work version. Almost every week somebody asks me the same question, but about AI. Am I doing this well enough? This week, a chief executive who reaches for it every morning and is well ahead of her whole leadership team. A senior leader who booked an hour on a feeling rather than a problem. I fear I am not using this in an advanced enough way. Someone who assumed what she does daily was too small to mention. Someone who admitted, quietly, that he was barely using it. They are at wildly different points. They ask the same question. There is no advanced room with AI either. You have the same product as the most capable person you know. Only the depth differs. The honest answer to am I ahead or behind is that nobody knows, including those who are ahead. Plus, you can't easily find your own inch, and everyone I've met has not heard a simple instruction that's been repeated to them multiple times. Every coaching session I run goes one of two ways. Sometimes someone finally hears something they have been told before. Sometimes it takes a nudge so small I feel faintly silly saying it out loud. Both are the same event. Something opens that was closed and the person is immediately doing better work, quicker and, the part I care most about, happier. This week it was both at once, 4 times over. Someone I sat with had been trying to get a model to edit an image. It kept changing things he had not asked it to change. He gave up and went back to Photoshop, which he had used for years. The fix was one sentence: start a new chat. A long conversation gets sent back to the model in full every time you add to it, so your actual request is competing with everything you said an hour ago. Imagine if, each time I spoke, I first recapped our entire conversation back to you. And then again, and then again. He'd heard me say this before. In training, I ran. It landed this week because he was stuck in the middle of something he cared about and could not explain what was going wrong. Notice which option was the comfortable one. Carrying on in the same chat costs nothing. Starting again means saying what you want properly, from scratch. The inch made the pose harder on purpose, which makes comfort a poor signal. If using these tools feels easy, that is usually evidence nobody has adjusted you lately. The last bit is for anyone running a business. In a yoga studio, the adjustment is free, expected, silent, no verdict. At work, we have made it expensive. Being corrected requires someone sticking their nose out to do so, and implies you are doing it wrong. Plus, the more senior you are, the less you can afford that in front of people. You can fix that this month, and not with another all-hands demonstration. 1 hour, one person, somebody sitting beside you while you do your actual work. Someone who won't tell your colleagues that you've been doing something wrong this whole time. Grab me if you don't have someone. And stop asking whether you're ahead. Ask whether last week was better, whether it was quicker, and how you felt on Friday afternoon. And ask whether you heard something for the first time this week. Those you can answer. Sometimes it is the big thing you have been told 100 times. Sometimes it is an inch. Either way, somebody else has to be in the room.
Here are 3 things worth knowing this week. Number 1. Google bought a dead airline's entire working memory for about $20 a worker. Google outbid Mercor, an AI data firm, and won Spirit Airlines' data estate with a $10 million bid, subject to a bankruptcy judge's approval next month. 34 years of internal documents, emails, workflows, and code from a US budget carrier, once worth $6 billion. That takes in more than 175,000 employee records back to 1986 HR files and 500 million Microsoft Teams chats. Mike Taylor, who has written 2 O'Reilly books on prompt engineering, put it at roughly $20 per worker per year, less than a month of one software seat. 2 points stand out to me. Every AI strategy I read says the company's own data is the moat, and nobody who sent those 500 million messages agreed to train a model. Number 2. The market has started discounting the phrase because of AI. Blaming AI for a round of job cuts has stopped being free. Challenger, Gray and Christmas, the outplacement firm, counts more than 180,000 corporate job losses linked to AI since May 2023, and AI was July's most cited reason for the 5th month running. Then, the Financial Times turned the claim over. Companies that blamed AI underperformed the Nasdaq by nearly 10% over the following 30 trading days. Number 3. A mathematician is leaving the field because proofs got cheap and trust didn't. Rishikesh Gajjala, a theoretical computer science postdoc, is leaving mathematics academia, and it isn't burnout or the job market. It's how much mathematics he could do with these tools in a few months. Most answers will be a prompt away, he reckons, and once he'd absorbed that, spending a life finding them slightly earlier stopped feeling like the point. What he's doing instead is the interesting half. Formal verification, because he can't get past how you know the oracle is right. These proofs are sophisticated and carry subtle errors, and until one is verified, he says it isn't different from slop. We spent last week on slop, and he says checking is the job now.
Three things to try. Number 1. Brief yourself on the person, not the thread. Between 2 meetings, I dictated 1 line. I'm meeting this person in 20 minutes' time. Recap recent emails with him over the last few weeks to remind me what he wants to talk about. 8 seconds to say. No files, no attachments, no search terms. I walked in and ran the meeting off that recap. I'm usually more organised. The framing does the work. I asked what he wants to talk about, a different question from what the email said, and the one that shapes how you turn up. 20 minutes is plenty, so is 5. Number 2. Give it send permission and one address it may use. Claude can now send email in Gmail on paid plans and Outlook mail through the Microsoft 365 connector, where an administrator switches the right tools on first. Either way, an assistant moves from reading your inbox to writing out of it. The reframe, from a meeting where a draft-only rule had everything stuck. Grant full send, name 1 permitted recipient, yourself. Blast radius, 1 inbox. Same move for any connector you've switched on. 1 caveat, in most tools that limit is an instruction, and the product can be talked out of enforcing it. Number 3. Hand it your medical records and ask what they add up to. My NHS account holds years of material I'd never read in one sitting. Consultation notes, letters between clinicians, referrals, test results. This week I pulled the lot out and had Claude work through it. It gave me the clearest account I've had of things that have been bothering me and joined dots I'd never heard joined. Now to run Claude's theory by the actual human expert.
What readers said. Last week I argued that calling something AI slop is often a way of dodging a conversation, and that our CEO principle, that all AI output should be checked, edited and owned by a human, gives you something to point at. A reader who sees an upside pushed back on the gloom. The work may be making us dumber, but a wall of text invites harder scrutiny, so tighter, better comms in the long run. Someone else was taken with the rule rather than the conversation, and reckons compressing it into 3 letters is what does the work. A little sprinkle of magic power. They've tried it at home too. And a reader 6 weeks behind, still on July's Wimbledon edition, corrected my photograph. The player caught at the net can play both games, which is the harder trick.
What readers posted on LinkedIn threads oddly well with the essay. Dylan Jones of Bold Square wants the always AI versus never AI argument dropped. Use it for the first draft, the second, the 15th if you must, just not the last. Colin Lewis of internetretailing.net has been counting the ads inside AI answers and finds spend running ahead of any way to measure it. And David Johnson Igra, an AI strategist, reckons Stripe paid $7 billion for a view of which models are winning.
That's it for David's Saturday AI Thoughts this week. This is a faithful reading of the email edition. The full written version with all the links and sources, plus 7 bits that didn't fit, full reader letters, and the community voices, is at stedman.ai. Thanks for listening.